Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Wind Waker Unflooded, a 3D modeling fan art project where we are reimagining the Kingdom of Hyrule within the world and art style of The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker. Of course, you know, if you've played Wind Waker, you know that all the islands of the Great Sea are secretly the mountaintops of Hyrule. But I've always wanted to know, what would Hyrule look like below the Great Sea? We get to explore a small portion of Hyrule in the game around Hyrule Castle, but there's so much of the world that we're told is there, but we never actually see, besides that area near the castle and the islands themselves. So this 3D modeling project is just all about filling in all of those gaps. We have 2% of the world. What's the other 98? And it's been really exciting to flesh this out. And, if you're new to the channel, this is what this channel is all about. Welcome to Wind Waker Unflooded. Terrible intro, oh man. But you know what? We're rolling with it, and we're keeping it short, under a minute. So welcome to a new video. So what we're doing today is working just a little bit on Lon Lon Ranch. I'm just trying to figure out, it's just kind of the geometry there. Figuring out some of the hills around there, figuring out how hay is going to work in Wind Waker. And I'm still kind of figuring some things out, and using, particle systems. It's going to definitely take up, how do I put it? Like, it's not going to make it into every render, right? Particles out up quickly, but just trying to get some systems in place so I can figure out some basic crops and go from there. And so really, this is an invitation for feedback. I always ask for y'all's feedback. I want to know y'all's ideas. I want to know what y'all have to say, your own, if you're new to the project. I want to know y'all's ideas. That directly influences what I work on next. And, and I take it all into account, all of your creativity. I want to share the creativity for this project. But I guess I want to know just kind of different crops that y'all be interested in seeing within the art style of the Wind Waker. There's things that make sense in game. It's like there's milk, right? So there's got to be, dairy farms, right? But what are the kind of things that y'all be interested in seeing? There's definitely things from, my own real life experience that I kind of want to inject into that as well. Thinking about different farms and just how that's going to play into the world of the Wind Waker. So kind of comment down below, your own perspectives there. And I think Lon Lon Ranch is interesting because it's multifunctional, right? It's mainly an Ocarina of Time. We see it as a horse riding, a horseback ranch. And there are cows there, and we know that, and there are chickens there. But most of the space is occupied by grazing horses, and, that we see in game, at least, right? Which I think is interesting. I don't think we see grazing cattle at all in Ocarina of Time, and it's something that I thought you would see more in Zelda, which I think is it's an interesting observation. Of course, in Twilight Princess there are goats that take up Orden Ranch, right? And they're allowed to graze, and you have to herd them back into the barn. And in Ocarina of Time, it might be implied that the cows have space to graze in, but we just don't see it. But anyway, I'm just kind of rambling. As I do, I guess that's the point of these voiceovers. So I guess I'm just kind of curious and kind of figuring out how to expand the ranch and what other kind of crops they might have. Because I guess we don't really think of it as a crop ranch, but I think it might be cool to kind of say, well, here's, a field of wheat over here next to the kind of horseback racing, field. You just kind of like occupy different spaces and just think about, different uses for the ranch. I think that would be interesting. Just kind of showing that functionality and showing different farms in the area, right? I mean, Lon Lon Ranch is, I think it's interesting because, of course, Talon is shown delivering, in Ocarina of Time, is shown delivering milk. I think it's milk, right? To the king, or basically like to the castle. So they're the main supplier of dairy, I think, for the castle's needs, which I think is really interesting because it seems to me that Talon and their ranch is not particularly well funded. I guess I don't know how else to put it, right? They seem a little bit lower class. It seems like there's certain things that are implied to be that way, which I think is interesting because when Ingo, of course, takes over the ranch later in the game, he's given a lot more money, and that doesn't mean that it's distributed to the other ranch, workers. That doesn't mean that Talon or Malin get a share of that, but Ingo is definitely shown, being financially benefited by Ganondorf's rule. which I think is really interesting, right? Because in game we're presented, that Ingo is a bad guy and him being in charge is bad. Like that's how it's presented. He's taking over the ranch and it's not fair anymore. But also it's like it's nuanced, it's complicated because Ingo, like, he complains about Talon being a lazy ranch owner, and maybe there's truth to that. We see Talon falling asleep everywhere, right, in the game. And maybe there's some truth to that. Why I don't know, it just makes you wonder, like, if the castle is paying for their goods, is that wealth already there and Talon's not distributing it properly? Who knows? I have so many questions, and comment down below y'all's takes on the Lon Lon Ranch financial situation. But anyway, I think it's time for a short message, so I'll talk to all of you again after the break. See you then.
If you want to be able to support me as a creator, there's several ways that you can do that. Become a member on Patreon. It gives you access to exclusive bonus features and early access content in all of my filmmaking projects. Stuff like early access to scripts that I'm writing, storyboards, previs, rough cuts, and music that I compose. I'm a composer, and any music that you've heard in the background of this video was my music. So go to Spotify or Apple Music or wherever you listen to music and type in Joe Kendrick. That's JoeKendrick. Look up Joe Kendrick on Spotify.
And we're back. Yeah. I just always have to remind you how you can support me as a creator. I don't make any ad revenue from these videos. If you see an ad on the video, it's because YouTube is making ad revenue. I'm not making any ad revenue from the channel. I don't think that's right. It's completely not monetized. So any way that you want to be able to support me as a creator is super meaningful, whether that's Patreon or my Coffee page or Spotify or whatever it is. That's super meaningful. And I thank you to everyone who has already supported me on Patreon. That means a lot, and I am incredibly thankful. That makes possible the creation of all of my creative projects. What were we talking about before the break? We were talking about Lon Lon Ranch, and I guess what I'm interested in, because it does seem to me that Lon Lon Ranch, even though they're a royal supplier, isn't necessarily benefiting financially from that interaction. So I guess I'd be curious in showing different farmers, because I think, like, traditionally as a stereotype you think of farmers and rural workers as being lower class, but there is a range, right? And I think it'd be interesting to show different farms in different classes. And I guess I want to be careful kind of in discussing that, in discussing class, because it's never easy on YouTube whenever you start discussing class. So I'm just, I'm scared. I'm scared of, saying the wrong thing. I don't know, especially, as an American, right? There's a deep history that I want to be cognizant of, and a world history that I want to be cognizant of. So I guess I want to be careful in how I discuss these things. But I guess what I am sure of is that Hyrule is a diverse world, and there's not equality. And so I want to be able to show, I guess, the world as it is, and I guess I want to show, who's at the top in these systems, and different just different sides of the economy, and just be able to show different kinds of farms and ranches. I think would be really interesting. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And any other evidence of that is something I'm interested in. Is like bringing, I guess, like, I'm not trying to bring some dark side to the world of the Wind Waker by introducing, realism in its economics, but I am trying to show that this is a world that, is diverse, and there are people at the top and there's people at the bottom, and that's the way the world works, and you can tell serious stories with that. And I don't want to shy away from certain things, and how that affects cities, right? How that affects, districts where there's more of the poor. How's that going to shape the world? These are all things that I think, I guess I want to play into the storytelling of the world, because this is about a kingdom that is about to fall. It can't last when Ganon tries to take it over again. And part of that is because Ganon, is strong and has forces, but I think it also crumbles on, from the inside a bit. I think about the fall of Rome, right? Or, the Star Wars, Grand Republic, right? Just as examples. Of course, everybody thinks about the fall of Rome. I'm a guy, but, I think about all these reasons that, a kingdom may have its own flaws that cause it to fall. And I'm interested in exploring all kinds of facets of that. So I guess like comment down below what kind of, how that interests you. And I guess like the storytelling of that can be implied through the environment, through the world, right? Is that even if I'm not writing a story literally, I am writing a story through the creation of the world. That is a piece of storytelling, the model itself. And I'm interested in exploring all of that in this model. So I guess, I would love to know kind of what y'all think about that, just showing different ways to show that the kingdom is, in some ways, there's a superficiality of strength, but it can't last when there's pressure on it. They're trying so hard to not fall, against another coup. Ganondorf already, had a successful coup during the events of Ocarina of Time. So in the prelude to the Wind Waker, how are they both trying so hard to not be taken over again, to not lose their kingdom, and yet how are they blind to actually prevent, another coup? Because Ganondorf comes again, and he is successful in taking over the kingdom. I think these are all things that I think about. And I know different people have commented, and like discussed different ideas about like how the Gerudo may be treated, and maybe how there's even evidence of that like even after the events of Ocarina of Time, almost as punishment for Ganondorf's actions, that even pushes the Gerudo to be even more excluded from the Hyrulean economy. Maybe there's even geographic isolation that is somehow made more prominent through the development of these railroad systems, through trade routes that are developed post Ocarina of Time that in the prelude to the Wind Waker are very much exclusionary to the Gerudo. There are all these instances of just interesting stories to tell about these things that may seal Hyrule's fate to fall yet again. And I guess I'm just curious to know y'all's ideas of, I'd love to talk more about that kind of stuff, and I'm interested in hearing from y'all. But anyway, I think it's time to wrap up the video, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I'll see you in the next episode. So without further ado, I'll let you go.